Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure and honor to rise and share a few comments about our friend and colleague, gone too soon, Kevin Phillips. I only knew Kevin probably casually before he came to this assembly. I knew him as, of course, we've heard today, a mayor and representative of the town of Melfort, and a very respected member of that community he was. We heard at length some of the involvement he's had in the community and in business, so I won't go into those details, Mr. Speaker. I just want to share a few stories about Kevin and in memory of him and the kind of person he was. And you know, the member for Newtown talked about his voice, and that's the one thing that you noticed instantly about Kevin, not only his towering size, but his slow, booming voice that he had. And very few words, but there's one thing you realize about Kevin when you listen to him, that although he was had a slow cadence and he had a really deep voice and didn't say a lot of words, every word he said usually had meaning to it. There was a reason for saying it. And those wise words that he often shared were backed by what has been described as a very huge heart. We heard that he was a very strong advocate for the what would be the first women's shelter built in the province after the late 1980s. And that was in no small part due to his hard work. And then we know the facility wasn't even open yet, and it succumbed to fire. And you know, he's very quick on the phone to make sure that everything was in place to make sure it was built, and it wasn't delayed too long. You know, a very great guy. He's always an encouragement to have around, as has been shared as well. But you know, I want to share one story. It's a bit of a funny story, and I'm not going to out my colleague that this story is about. But it just so happens, again, we heard about Kevin's generous nature, whether it was somebody in the alley somewhere or whether it was, you know, somebody in an office building in Regina. He was there to help. And as the story goes, this person needed a car to get around town with, as theirs was in getting repaired. And Kevin, of course, would have been the first one to offer his fairly new Hemi Charger. But Kevin, being more into helping people than maybe looking after some of his stuff, and you know, might have had the odd cigarette here and there. We know his car was probably not the cleanest, or didn't smell the cleanest. And as the story goes, that this member had the car and brought it back and just offered some constructive comments that, you know, maybe you might want to clean it and maybe get it deodorized. And standard Kevin fashion, kind of looking sideways, looked over and said, "Did it get you where you're going?" "Well, yeah." "You're welcome." That's all that had to be said, I guess. I won't say that Kevin was prophetic, but I can tell you this, Mr. Speaker. The first time I met the new member for Melfort would have been at the budget, I believe it was 2 years ago, and that's how I got introduced to our new member for Melfort was, you know, Greg, I want to introduce you to the new MLA for Melfort. I won't say his name, I guess. Will be the new member for Melfort. And it struck me as a little bit odd, but what that told me was that Kevin probably at that point decided he wasn't going to run again, but he obviously never thought we were going to be losing him that soon. And as fate would have it, that we did lose Kevin a short time afterwards, a few months after that. And we had a by-election, and of course, we know, I think there's, 4 or 5 candidates there, and Kevin was right, because I think without even much of a vote, I think the first round is when we acquired that new member, and we now have that MLA for Melfort. So Kevin, I think, saw exactly in him what I think a lot of us see now. So I think that member sells himself a little bit short from time to time as well. So I think there's a lot of similarities between Kevin and our new MLA for Melfort. Of course, we know Kevin has obviously gone much too soon. He had a lot to offer yet in the years that he had to serve after his passing, but of course we did lose him too soon. And there was one thing that was very obvious when talking to Kevin was, of course, a love for his community and the province, but most and foremost was a love for his family, specifically his wife April. He couldn't say enough about her. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of, I know, everybody from Yorkton and my family and my wife Leon, who got to know April fairly well, that Kevin is sorely missed. Rest peacefully, my friend, and God bless April. May you just enjoy God's comfort.